Welcome back, DIVEBOMB IndyCar Podcast to review the Grand Prix of Portland, and I'd say probably down to two. Like, there's just two of us in this recording today. There's no Ellie, unfortunately, this week. It's just me and Archie to review the Portland. As I said, I think we're down to two in the championship with an almighty win for Will Power in the course of the 2024 championship. He closes the gap slightly to 54 points as he led Álex Palou home for his third win of the season. Maybe not a statement win, but a particularly important one if Will Power is still looking to win the IndyCar Championship this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like after every race at the moment, we seem to be saying like, oh, well, this is defining, it's down to such and such a contender. There seems to be swings every single race with the one consistent factor of Palou just plugging away, playing that percentage game, always staying intact. But I think for Power, we'll get onto his drive imminently, but he probably just ruse all of those lost points, say the Indy 500 crash, the Toronto incident with McLaughlin, obviously the misfortune last time out, well, before Portland at Gateway. Without that, I mean, it would be a two-horse race of two guys who are super close together rather than Palou having this pretty comfortable buffer of essentially max points from a race weekend. So, yeah, I would say it probably is down to two, but you can't count anything out. But with three races to go and a 54-point gap between the top two, it's kind of hard to say that anyone else is really properly in contention.
And yeah, it was an almighty drive from Will Power. It was, I wouldn't say dominant, but it wasn't far off. It took the lead in turn one after starting second. We'll get onto the crazy qualifying session we had a bit later. But it was pretty much start to finish from Will Power. There's a couple of times Palou got onto his gearbox, maybe looked like he had to move on, but fantastic work from the number 12 team in the pits, fantastic work on the strategy stand as well. That made a huge difference because obviously Power had those red tyres towards the end and won by quite a comfortable 10 seconds in the end. It was pretty much a caution-free race bar a little incident on lap one, which we'll get onto later. But, you know, Power and Palou, absolute class of the field. They were in a complete league of their own. I mean, Palou usually is anyway, but Power's in that league as well. And it wasn't the most enthralling race you've ever had. Let's not beat around the bush, but it was an intriguing one at many points. And, you know, it looked like at times maybe it might sway Palou's way. But Power was very mature, which some people, you know, we have the whole Will Power angry, whatever. He drove a very, very strong race.
Yeah, I mean, you say it wasn't dominant, and yeah, maybe it wasn't a complete beatdown like we've seen from Palou when he puts 20, 30 seconds on the field. However, I think it's about as close, other than that, as you can get to a real kind of a driver just being in a completely different league. And I think Palou was in that different league to a lesser extent, but he just really couldn't lay a glove on Power. I think you mentioned the pit stops. They were crucial. The 12 crew really outperformed the 10 crew. Some really quick stops to fend off whether Palou was trying to undercut various points in the race. But ultimately, Power had the pace. I know there was one kind of mid to late race bit where Power was catching traffic and Palou kind of gained quite significantly, but Power still, again, kind of drew that gap back out. So, yeah, I mean, it was back to the form we saw at the start of the season for Power, qualifying second again. I think he started on the front row 5 times, including the Indy 500 this year. And yeah, I mean, Santino Ferrucci was on pole. We'll discuss that in a bit. But I think at the start, you know, they're not teammates, but they are kind of stable mates, I think you could put it, with obviously the relationship between Penske and Foyt. And I think Power said he was going to work with Ferrucci, and actually he didn't intend to take the lead, but Ferrucci, maybe as an experienced leading a field to green, kind of braked quite early, quite cautiously. And I mean, Power said that, I think the day before, that he could be a bit elbows out, he could be aggressive, he could be Verstappen-like, I think is what he said, while Palou kind of played the percentage game. But really, as soon as Power took the lead, it was just it was decisive to take the lead when he did, and then from there, he kind of just kept a cool head and fended off any challenge, and ultimately it was pretty controlling, and it's big for Power. It's the first time since 2018 he's won three races in a season. You know, he obviously went winless last year. That was a big story with the health concerns around his wife Liz, but that's all sorted now. Power's head's right back in the game. And as I've said so many times, this kind of feels like his true title defense. And maybe he's not quite been 2022 Will Power. I think he admitted that he's maybe been a bit over aggressive at times. But, this is an emphatic response to what went on last year. Taking 3 wins now. Obviously, the Iowa one was a little bit fortuitous. The Road America one, he completely outdueled his teammates to win there. And now this as well, he's outdueled the guy who is, the best driver in the series in recent years. So I think the only other thing to note on Power, really, retirement's kind of been mentioned recently with obviously David Malukas moving to Foyt, and questions, are Penske involved in this? Do they want him as Power's replacement? Power was, again, emphatic in saying, no, I'm not retiring. I love doing this. And why would he retire if he's still performing at this level? He was very keen to say he wants to continue with them and continue in IndyCar for as long as he can. And retirement is not in his head at the moment. So that was vintage Will Power. That's all you can say to cap that off.
You mentioned the significance of qualifying Will Power on the front row and that leading into the championship. And we spoke to Will about that post-qualifying on Saturday, as well as about what happened at Worldwide Technology Raceway the week prior. Thanks, Dave. Well done on today, Will. Just looking at the championship, do you still see it as a realistic opportunity for you, or do you think you are sort of relying on Álex to have a couple of off days?
Oh, yeah, man. It's still very, very possible. Very possible because it's almost a little less than a quarter of the races to go. So 4 races, a lot of points, a lot of stuff can happen. But I would have to say, if he finishes ahead of me tomorrow, it starts to look very, very tough. So we'd have a good day, and at least finish ahead of him. See where we come out in points there, and then doubleheader at Milwaukee. A lot on offer, so our goal is to get as close as we can to him by Nashville.
And then after all that happened last week, if you sort of cleared that up with the team, obviously you're quite unhappy with Josef and a few others. So is that all sorted now going into the rest of the season?
Whatever. I'm over that stuff real quick. Just one of those things. It was unfortunate. We had a very good car and a very good night, but moved on very quickly, focusing on this event to get the best possible results. So see what we could do tomorrow.
Crucial win for Will Power in the course of the championship, and just as we said, it's between him and Álex Palou to decide the 2024 IndyCar title between themselves. And if your team Power ahead of the last 3 races in Milwaukee and Nashville, why not show your support for him by heading to the Formula Model Shop website, where you can pick up his 2024 driver's cap, just an example amongst all the other merchandise Formula Model Shop sell. Not only Will Power, they've got plenty of other stuff. It is certainly the best place to buy your merchandise in the UK and the rest of Europe.
You can use the discount code FIVEBOMB, or one word, FIVEBOMB, to gain 5% off products on the FMS site. Visit the highlights on the DIVEBOMB Motorsport Instagram account for a link to an exclusive VIP section on the FMS store, courtesy of DIVEBOMB.
You can click on the pink banner on the DIVEBOMB website or head to formulamotorshop.co.uk to head to their website. If you haven't called it already, as we mentioned earlier, Formula Motor Shop are running a giveaway with us to win Toby Sari's signed and race-worn gloves and boots, so check that out if you haven't already.
Stay tuned for more exclusive giveaways, events, and other content.
Right, so this is the segment we usually go through cautions and the other contenders, but we're going to have a bit more of a look at the championship, I think, this week, because that's what is the most important thing. That is the prevalent talking point at the minute with just 3 races left. As we know, it's Power with a little gap of 54, Palou with a gap of 54 to Power behind. There's sort of 5 going into this race we thought who had a shot at the championship. As we said, we both think that's probably down to 2. So we'll just review how the other 3's day went and, if there is any remote chance. I think all of them is going to be answers going to be no. Colton Herta, he is the closest one. He's now minus 67 to Palou. Finished 4th, which all things considered wasn't too bad. Had a bit of a bizarre moment in his final pit stop where he seemingly stalled, but then restarted with the hybrid, which supposedly isn't allowed, and had to give a rather bizarre. You had to yield 1 track position to a lap car of Pietro Fittipaldi, which was a rather bizarre penalty. I mean, we're touching that first. I mean, it's obviously due to some safety reason, but I thought they disabled it in pit lane, so I have no idea what happened there.
So it was disabled in pit lane, and then obviously Iowa qualifying happened, where a lot of those issues with the hybrid were because it was disabled, and I think there were issues kind of re-enabling the hybrid system when it wasn't activated for some drivers on their qualifying laps at Iowa. So since then, I think it has been activated in pit lane. And I think, they mentioned on the broadcast that drivers actually, I think in other sessions have kind of been able to use this. So Herta had no idea this was against the rules because, if it's at your disposal, then why wouldn't you use it? I mean, as you say, maybe it is something to do with safety, but I don't know what exactly. I mean, can you think of why it would be particularly unsafe? Obviously, don't know like the technical stuff, but
might be something to do through, but I don't see how it's any more dangerous than somebody manually restarting.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. So it's a bit strange to me that it's activated but not allowed to be used. It didn't really cost Herta anything in the end, to be honest. I think he even admitted that he would have finished fourth regardless. There was a big buffer. Well, he probably would have come out challenging Newgarden for third, but evidently he didn't feel like he could have got that position. And with the strange penalty, clearly because there's just no precedent for this thing. He was kind of dropped into the clutches of Marcus Armstrong, had a very good weekend, but held on. So, decent day.
Yeah, I've got to give credit to Colton. In the last 7 races, he's got 6 top 5 finishes. The only one he missed out on was the Iowa one where he got really unfortunate with that caution. So, he's a pretty good form for Colton. All of last year, and he had 3 top 5s. So, fair play to the man. He's got 4 in a row. And as I said, 6 in the last 7. Look, Herta has been quite strong on ovals. I find it still unbelievable he hasn't got an oval podium yet because he's been incredibly close throughout his entire career. Hasn't quite happened. And look, he's looked strong at ovals. I can see him grabbing a podium, maybe even better at Milwaukee or Nashville. But 67 points, he's got to be beating Palou by 23 points a race, and that's like if Herta wins every race, Palou still has to finish 7th, so it's not likely, is it?
Yeah, the thing is, Palou is still in somewhat of a danger zone where if he does have an accident and Power goes and picks up max points, it's completely open. But then you could say the same thing the other way around. If Power or Herta has an accident, Palou picks up the pieces, that's pretty much championship done. I think it is worth just kind of touching on just how impressive Palou was. Like, he clearly didn't have the car to challenge Power, really. But I don't think there's ever been a time where you come away from a race thinking, oh, wait, Álex Palou, well, maybe apart from when he crashed Iowa, Álex Palou hasn't maximized what was on the table. He's so good at that and so good at kind of balancing being aggressive and also not taking unnecessary risks. I think Power actually spoke about that afterwards. It was just, again, yes, he lost points to Power. The gap's slightly more slender than it was heading into Portland, but I still think it was a phenomenal weekend for Palou, and keep picking up those results, and it'll be an easy ride to the end of the season and to win the championship.
Despite a qualifying mistake.
Yes, that's it.
Maybe that's not. He was, like I say, he's fortunate, but the fact he got no damage was a bit of a lifesaver for him because that would have been him out of the fast 12. So
at this stage, can you even say it's fortune? It's just great car control.
When you're 2 foot in a wall, the car control wasn't great to get it off the track in the first place, and when you're 2 foot in a wall, maybe. Yeah. We did well to keep it running. I'll give him that. But probably was a bit lucky on this occasion to not get any damage.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. But again, these cars are robust to say the least.
Scott McLaughlin was an outsider. He's now 88 points behind. Now we're getting into almost mathematically impossible territory now. Just didn't qualify. This track has gone up well in previous years, but just didn't qualify for the fast 12. Took an engine penalty because why not? It wasn't a good qualifying anyway, so might as well just take an engine whilst he's at it. We saw it with Pato Award. We saw it with Felix Rosenqvist and a couple of others. It was just hard to overtake. So he still ended up 7th, which actually wasn't too bad from where he started. He started 20th, so that was quite a good recovery from McLaughlin in the end. But it's obviously not enough for a championship fight by any means. But I still think it was quite a quietly good performance. McLaughlin's had a really good year. I think it's just been let down by a couple of races.
Yeah, I think it was a superb performance, to be honest, because when you look at the likes of O'Ward down the order, he I think finished 15th in the end after starting. Let me get the results back
22nd.
22nd. So he made 7 places. McLaughlin starting 2 places ahead made up 13. So I think that says what a good drive it was, and again kind of emphasizes the form that McLaughlin's in. So I don't know whether they noticed a bit of an anomaly or something in the engine that kind of prompted the change, as well as just thinking, oh, it's a good opportunity. We're starting a bit further down, especially ahead of 3 ovals to come, where McLaughlin has been supreme in qualifying recently. On ovals, Penske are known to be so strong. But I think, as you say, it's kind of reached the stage now where he feels a bit far back. Obviously, Newgarden's way out of it. I think Power actually said that it is now at a stage where he feels Penske could start to basically aid him and try and win in the championship with the other cars. I know it's kind of easier said than done. I know, team orders aren't a massive thing in IndyCar. All of the separate cars are almost separate entities within the team. So yeah, we'll see how that unfolds. But yeah, it was a disappointing qualifying for McLaughlin, but that was a super tough group. That second group in qualifying had 2 Arrow McLaren cars, 4 Ganassi cars, all the Penske cars, and Andretti. So, and he was 4 100ths off progressing. It must be said, the field spread up until the race, I think in second practice, the top 15 were all essentially within 0.2 of a second. Yes, it's one of the shortest tracks that we go to, but that's still so tight. And it's where kind of marginal gains where you might have a better car, but just because you manage traffic one way, it might be the difference between you making it and not making it.
That leads us nicely, actually, because we said the field spread was quite tight, but in the race, it was all spread out a little bit more. So that's exactly what we asked Álex Palou, as well as what he thought of Power's threat to his championship in the remaining 3 races of 2024. Thanks, Dave. Well done today, guys. In practice and qualifying, there seemed to be quite low field spread between the entire field, but during the race was obviously quite spread out. So do you have any sort of suggestions to why that is, either of you?
Yeah, it was super close in qualifying. And actually, if you look at the beginning of the race, it was super close. Like, it was tough to make differences. But as it was a flatter race, I think we could see the differences between cars and between drivers as well, and just tire deck and stuff. So yeah, I think everybody expected to see it within the teams. Everybody expected to see this kind of race where you start to see differences between lap 15 to 30. That's where you really start pulling away or start losing lap time.
And Álex, you obviously have quite a comfortable championship lead heading to the last few races of the season, but considering how strong Penske have been on the ovals and in the Milwaukee test, does this put sort of any doubt in your mind over the outcome?
No, I'm not 100% comfortable. I think we have a lot of work ahead of us to do, but yeah, as I said, it could be a lot worse. I could be with only 1 point of difference, and then I would have to obviously beat him on those tracks, or I could be sitting second or third. So I like where we're sitting. I like the opportunity that we have in front of us. As I said, I felt really good at Milwaukee, and maybe we can surprise Penske. Who knows? Maybe we show up and suddenly nobody can catch us.
Out of all the days for championship contender, the worst was certainly for Scott Dixon, whose hopes, they are pretty much over now. 101 points behind. Lap 1 incident. I think it's his first lap 1 retirement, they said, since Motegi 2005. 19 years this man has managed to avoid a lap 1 incident. And like Dixon isn't a great qualifier either, is he? So that's really impressive.
That is an incredible stat. That is a really incredible stat.
Yeah, unbelievable. Anyway, well, it's a stat he probably didn't want to end, because it can never spell that well. And yeah, he was quite unhappy with Kyle Kirkwood. He pushed him wide on the exit of turn 8. Push him onto the grass. This move we saw last year. I think Callum Islet was victim of it last year. maybe it was Grosjean, somebody was victim of it last year. It's not a completely uncommon move, but I wouldn't say particularly fair one. I mean, Kirkwood didn't touch Dixon, but he didn't leave him any room either. And then as Dixon's trying to recover, he gets overtaken by a few cars and then eventually gets collected by Pietro Fittipaldi. It's a bit of a debate. Should Fittipaldi be penalised? He got a drive-through. I think he should have done, but I don't know what you think.
I mean, first of all, miraculously, and I think, if I'm right in saying, the second successive year we've got through turn one at Portland cleanly.
Yeah.
And then it's further on in the lap that something happens. I think, it was something to, it was Grosjean and I that were involved last year, I remember. Was the penalty fair? It's a tough one because
the broadcast was split.
It wasn't like Fittipaldi, just completely ran into Dixon. If the curb wasn't there, nothing would have happened. But then, should he really expect that the curb is going to launch him? Maybe. At the end of the day, it's contact that's avoidable, and that's what the penalty is going to be for. I think, so that I'm not really, I don't really feel strongly either way. I could have seen both arguments. I think the other debate point is obviously, where do you draw the line in terms of cars running other cars off the track? Okay, there was no contact between Kirkwood and Dixon, but Dixon went off track to avoid contact. Dixon could very easily have kind of stayed on track, and there probably would have been contact. So I think it's important that we keep the sort of hard racing that we love, but also kind of drawing a line somewhere. I don't know where you kind of assess that line.
Would you have penalised him?
Would I have penalised him? Off precedent from this season? No. It's a hard one. I think,
but that could be a yield one position.
I don't think I would give a drive-through penalty. If Dixon was still in the race, maybe you would say, okay, we'll drop Kirkwood behind Dixon. But obviously that couldn't happen either. So yeah, I think yield positions would be fair. It's not a drive-through penalty, I don't think. And if I would say it's only penalty worthy, maybe if the driver is forced all four wheels off the track like Dixon was. So yeah, I think that's probably fair, yield positions, but yeah, it's hard racing. That's what IndyCar is.
Yeah.
As Josef Newgarden once said, it gets tight. But I think it was a little. I don't know whether Kirkwood was aware. He probably wasn't, but it was a little bit out of order, I thought.
Yeah, no, I think that's better. I mean, Fittipaldi, I'm not going to say he should know he clocked the curb, but that curb there's a reason why nobody runs it, and it is at a bit of a weird angle. So when we were on board with Dixon, I could see that coming. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those occasions as well where you see the crash happen while on board. That's quite a rarity.
Yeah. Fittipaldi is trying to go for a gap, but it was a gap which is closing. So I deserve penalty for me.
Should we just go on to Fittipaldi's second penalty?
Oh yeah, I mean, got worse, didn't it? He got pounded into Connor Daly quite clumsily whilst locking up into turn one, and then added insult to injury by failing to take the route IndyCar wanted the drivers to take a turn one around the bollard. So he ends up getting 2 drive-through penalties for that.
Did he get penalised for the not going through the chicane properly as well?
Yeah, I think. Wait, I'm sure he came to the pits twice. Anyway, whatever happened, he got. I think he got 3. It only says
he got penalties. 2. He got 2. I don't think he was penalised for the chicanery.
But then why was he penalised for that? Because he still broke the rules.
That's true.
That's an argument.
I mean, he was already a couple of laps down, wasn't he?
He got 2 drive-throughs, maybe a third, but yeah, I mean, it was clumsy, wasn't it? So
it was. I mean, I wouldn't say he lost his head. That was the first thing that could cross my mind. Or he's trying to desperately recover after a penalty that he feels was a bit of an injustice. Has he lost his head a bit? I don't think that was the case, but kind of days of guys competing for the final leader circle places being ruined by stupidity was a bit of a theme.
So something about Roman Grosjean and Portland, isn't there? There was the whole him exploding his team after qualifying last year. He probably had something the year before, I don't know, but it was a shame because Grosjean was running a really good race. I thought for a while he might have a podium in the bag. I've just read that Grosjean's best finish in Portland is 19th. Anyway, sorry, that's a side note. Having a really good race, he was up at the front. I thought a podium was on the cars. He was having a really good day. Clumsy spin. That's a shame. Ruins his race. That's annoying for him. Now, turn 1, or turn 2, I should say, has so much runoff area. So why he's decided to just spin onto the racing line, and there's poor Christian Rasmussen with absolutely nowhere to go, who is just stuck, and that's a pile into Grosjean. I mean, I don't know what Grosjean's thinking. He got penalised for it with unsafe behaviour. That's what they described it as, and he got a drive-through for it. But I mean, that's probably on the lenient side. It was. I mean, I don't even know what he was thinking. It was just stupid. Again, he might have lost his head. He might have been frustrated at the mistake he made after running really well. But it was. I mean, it was completely out of order to do that. So I mean, I don't know what he's thinking, but.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good weekend up until then. I think he qualified 8th, got promoted to 6th with a couple of engine penalties, and yeah, was up to 4th by I think even the start of the race, and so close to him and Ferrucci kind of encountering one another on track. That would have been entertaining. But actually, talking of Grosjean and aggro, in Friday practice, of course, Graham Rahal drove into him after Grosjean came out of the pits, kind of dawdling a bit, going slow in the turn 1 apex, and Rahal was not happy. The thing is, that doesn't have to ruin his day. I mean, it obviously ruins getting a top 5 finish, but you know, he could still have ended up in the back end of the top 10. I know he was kind of stuck there for a while, losing places as he tried to get refired, tried to find a gap. I don't know. I just don't know what was going through his head. Was it impatience that like the gap wasn't coming? He just thought, right, let's just go for it. But regardless, don't re-enter on the racing line. I mean, this is a guy with years and years of experience in motorsport, in F1. And like, for someone to have been at the top level for that long and to still do something like that, it was, just nothing short of lunacy, really. It was completely his fault. It was so dangerous, absolutely no awareness. I mean, he got a drive-through penalty for it, did he?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, I think they need to come down harder on that.
Linus said the same to Toby Sowery.
That's the other thing as well. He did it once and then didn't learn from it and did it again.
Pushed off Colton Herta. I mean, it wasn't his fault, but he pushed Herta onto the grass at one point as well. So, and then he had a puncture and then decided to go full beans into turn 4, thinking that would work as well. So, yeah.
I think at that point he probably just lost his head, to be honest. So that was a shame, but I think just to look at the leader's circle picture now. So, I mean, the battle really on the buffer in entrant points. So it's top 20. It's 22 cars get leader circle contracts because Ganassi are running 5. Only 3 of their cars get it. So currently 24th in entrant points, but just inside the leader circle is the 20 entry. But the 78 obviously now piloted by Connor Daly. I mean, Daly, despite the being punted by Fittipaldi, he's kind of doing the job he needs to do. That's now level with the 20 car. I mean, that's some battle, isn't it? The deeper meaning after obviously Daly getting sacked from the 20 car last year. I mean, you've got the 51 as well, is only 8 points off now, and the 18's miles off. About the 18. Some quick maths is 34 points off, that's quite a distance. I would be worried. I mean, Ed Carpenter said, interviewed on the broadcast, that he needs to do a better job himself, and the pressure's on, really. Carpenter against Daly for this final leader circle place. It looks to be the battle, really.
Let's go on to Josef Newgarden. Finished on the 3rd step of the podium, and it was actually one of those days which I think Newgarden has really needed this year. A quietly solid day, and ended up with a 3rd place finish. It's one of those weekends where we didn't really see Newgarden at all. He qualified 7th, but got promoted to 5th after penalties, and he just ended up in 3rd and didn't really seem to do much. He just ended up there, and that's not a bad thing by any means after the season he's had.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. It's been a very, very rocky year. I mean, it's only his 5th podium. I say only 5th podium. It's still a decent tally, but he's only the 2nd on the road or street course, obviously not including St. Pete after the disqualification. Pretty quiet day, but no errors from his side, no bobbles in the pits. So, yeah, just the sort of run, as you say, that Newgarden really needed.
And we spoke to Josef about what he was looking forward to the last 3 ovals of the season, because we also know that is his speciality. So here's what he had to say about the upcoming races in Milwaukee and Nashville. Just for Josef, as I said, you're really strong at the tests recently. And your short oval form has been sensational. So how much are you looking forward to returning to Milwaukee and heading to Nashville? How do you expect the 2 tracks to race for raceability?
I'm excited for sure. I like Milwaukee. I've been there a couple times in the past before we left, for a little hiatus. And I always thought it was fun. I hope we can produce a good race. Nashville, completely unknown to me too. I've never been on the track. I've been out there to watch some testing, but really don't know what that one's like. I have high hopes that we can find a good package for both places. I think Gateway was really pretty phenomenal as far as the combination. Like, it's not easy. It's not an exact science. I think if we could bottle, a good racing package where there's usability on multiple lanes, we would take it everywhere. But, sometimes it's a little bit of guesswork and trial and error. You have to kind of go places a time or two to figure it out. And this new package, I think we're still trying to figure out with the extra weight, the hybrid, the tires, the aero configuration. But I have high hopes that we can have a good race package both for Milwaukee and Nashville. And, just overall, of course, I love oval racing too. So excited to finish the season strong.
Feels a good time to mention Santino Ferrucci, who took the pole position in a complete surprise. AJ thought his first pole position in 10 years since Takuma Sato took pole, and Ferrucci said the car was really good ever since they rolled off. But did he expect a pole? I certainly don't think so. As we said, Powell got him as 10-1, and obviously, realistically, he was never going to keep that up. But fair play to Santino Ferrucci. That is an effort for the ages. And look, that is now he finished 8th in the end. That is now his 8th top 10 finish this season in 14 races. That's super impressive. And as I've said in this season, Ferrucci for me has been one of the drivers of the season. And this only obviously backs up that point more. That was a sensational performance in qualifying, and by no means a bad performance on race day either.
Yeah, it obviously was a surprise, and AJ Foyt car being at pole is, of course, going to be a surprise, and it's been a decade since that last happened. But I think it's not a total shock when you kind of look at the trajectory they have been on this year, whether, obviously they've been aided by the Penske Alliance. That's been a massive thing. But I think, they're keen to say as a team, there's other stuff. It's not just that. Other stuff in the team. And I think it just emphasizes that Ferrucci's here looking good for a top 10 in the championship after being 19th in the standings last year. I think their only top 10 finish was 3rd in the Indy 500. I think they only have one of the top 15 finish. So to have, I think you said 8 top 10 finishes on the year it's an astronomical upturn. It was their first Fast 6 appearance since Sebastian Bourdais in 2021. So it's quite incredible what they've managed to do this year, because last season they were right down there with your Dale Coynes or struggling. Basically, they were really struggling. So Ferrucci's part in this has been he's played a huge role in this, and it seems absurd that there's any probability of him not continuing with the team. Obviously, there are these external factors. Was it Penske who wanted Malukas in? Now they've got to get the funding together. But who wouldn't really kind of put the backing into a lineup of Malukas and Ferrucci, because that has the potential to be 2 drivers in the top 10 of the championship.
Look, I can't see why they'd pick up David Malukas if they don't have intentions of keeping Santino Ferrucci. I'm not saying Malukas is a bad driver. I'm just saying I don't think compared to Ferrucci, he's a huge upgrade for, especially the relationship they've built with Ferrucci. So I think it'd be odd. He said 1 top 15 all year. He's only had 3 outside the top 15 this year, 2 of them being retirements, one in Toronto, one in the Indy GP. So what a turnaround it has been for the 14 team. Following qualifying, we spoke to Santino about his pole position, about the emphasis of having Will next to him and the turnaround the team have had in the last 12 months. Thanks, Dave. Hi, Santino. Congratulations on today. Will was saying that you two could sort of strategize for tomorrow, both being on the front row. So from your perspective, did it help to have someone who is sort of a teammate to you alongside you?
It's definitely going to make it interesting. At the end of the day, we are kind of our own team, but we're fighting our own championship. I'm also, the championship doesn't really matter as much to me as getting a win. So that's kind of my goal. And, if we can help out some of our Penske Alliance friends and, to help Will with the championship in any way with, how we do things, then yeah, we're obviously going to. It's what teammates do, and it's how kind of things work. But by no means am I going to start and pull over to let him take the lead into one. So,
and then I know the Penske Alliance has certainly helped things, but can you sort of assess the rise that you and the team have had over the last 12 months? Because I'm sure 1 year ago, Portland, you never thought this would be possible in a year's time.
man, yeah, it's been a huge help. It's not just, there's so much more that goes into it between just the alliance and working with everybody. And, our engineering staff is unreal. We have some really overqualified guys here, and they've worked together so well. It's one of those things to where it's kind of created a perfect storm for us to where everybody's just gelled seamlessly. And the car, we've found good setups throughout the year. We've showed speed at a lot of different tracks on a lot of different disciplines, and we've been good at Laguna. We were good at Barber. We were average at Mid-Ohio and Road America, and we figured out kind of why. So coming to Portland, with the last road course, I knew that if we put everything together correctly, I mean, even working with Chevrolet and some of the other things and side things that we get as being a Chevy team really prepped us well for this event, and it shows. And this is definitely a glimpse into the future for the team, I believe.
Running order: Power, Palou, Newgarden, Herta. Quite a strong day for Marcus Armstrong. Future's up in the air. That's his 4th top 5 of the year. Solid day for Armstrong. Good result. Qualified, started 7th, I should say. Obviously got promoted through penalties, but after doing this, this is a good result. He's a good result the week after, so that's really good for him. So important day for Marcus. That.
It was crucial for him, to be honest. It was from really the start of the weekend that he showed this sort of speed. He topped his group in opening practice and then made it into the Fast 12. And I feel that's one thing that he definitely has on Lundqvist. He's much more reliable in terms of, you can kind of almost guarantee that he will make it to that latter part of qualifying. I've not got the exact stats, but he's not missed out that many times this year, which is pretty impressive. And I feel like he's often running in the top 10 in races as well. It's just been about kind of executing by the time the checkered flag falls. And, misfortune has been a big part of his season, I would say, but things just haven't fallen his way. Maybe some things that are his own doing as well. But I actually have more confidence, and this probably comes from being a sophomore driver, in him having this sort of top 10 day than Lundqvist, because we've seen the peaks that Lundqvist can achieve, and he's got 2 podiums. Armstrong obviously has the one at Detroit, but Lundqvist doesn't have the consistency. And maybe if he gets that second year, then that will come. But Armstrong, it was really kind of methodical the way he made progress through the race, and it was kind of reminding me a bit like what we see from Palou and Dixon. So yeah, I wouldn't be so quick in kind of writing Armstrong and his future off just yet. And he's shown that he can hold his own with some of the best in a series. And we actually spoke to Armstrong on Friday after a really strong practice session about both his adaptation to oval racing and kind of what he feels he has learned in the last 12 months or so.
Are there any kind of what are the biggest lessons been in terms of actual oval races in these 3 oval races that you've actually completed?
Yeah, it is obviously very different to what I'm used to, but I've got great data and great teammates to learn from. And I mean, in Gateway, I was very instinctual, to be honest, following cars, attacking, restarts, all of that. It's kind of like being back in Europe and karting. You need to either attack or you'll be attacked. So I enjoyed that aspect, and it helps when the Chip Ganassi racing car is as solid as it is on ovals.
Compared to kind of where you were this time last year as an IndyCar driver, are there any specifics on the driving side that you feel you have improved on or are kind of different to this time last year when you were a rookie still?
No, it's there's a lot of nuances to racing IndyCar, a lot of fuel saving, time management in a slightly different way to Pirelli. The racing itself, the sort of strategy, you need to understand it when you're inside the car. So it does take a few minutes to understand that. And compared to my first race at St. Pete last year to where I am now, I have a much better understanding of how to win a race, just from a strategy point of view. So when I'm inside the car, there's a sense of relief that I sort of understand the concept of it.
One Marcus followed another as Marcus Ericsson came sixth for another quietly strong day for Marcus Ericsson. A bit disappointed after what happened in Gateway, obviously, but that was a good result for him. I don't think there's too much to say, but good result for Marcus Ericsson indeed. McLaughlin was 7th ahead of Ferrucci in 8th. 9th place was Graham Rahal, which I thought was a pretty good effort too. His equal best second result of the season.
Yeah, he made. I think he made the fast 6 for the first time this year. Actually, it feels like there's been a lot of occasions where Rahal's kind of been on the brink, but hasn't got the job done in terms of making it to that latter part of qualifying.
Then it was Carl Kirkland 10th. He got a penalty and yielded 2 positions for blocking. That was on, I can't remember. Do you remember?
That was on Sowery, actually.
That was on Sowery. We'll get to that when we get onto Toby, but yes, he got penalised for that, so he was 10th. 11th was VK ahead of Rossi, Lundqvist, Rosenqvist and Award. Let's touch on Aaron McLaren because this was a terrible weekend. Terrible weekend. And then they got through to fast 12. Rossi was the best qualifier in 17th. Award 22nd, Siegel 23rd. Award was characteristically off the pace. I mean, second to last in his group. That is, I know he wanted one more lap even for Award. That's incredibly unlike him, and they just couldn't make the progress through the field. Rossi finished 12th. Award finished 15th, as we said. Siegel didn't have a good day. He went off whilst battling Toby Sowery, so he ended up 21st. So was not a good day by any means for Aaron McLaren. A really just out of fashion weekend for them. And Awards, well, that was Awards' best finish in the last 3 races, which has quite a lot. That's Rossi's best finish since Iowa race 1. So, I mean, it's just been a terrible patch and it's sort of compounded all their woes.
Yeah, no, I mean, they actually rolled off all right in practice, to be honest. Rossi was really quick, and Award kind of, I think he struggled initially, but really kind of found his groove. And I think they felt going into qualifying that they were in a pretty good spot, and then like it just all completely crumbled. And yeah, obviously none of their cars even starting inside the top 15, I don't think. So yeah, Rossi was the highest starter in 17th. So yeah, pretty poor. And as you said, the wheels have kind of just come off, especially for Award. We were saying with all these ovals to come, he could really be a possible challenger to Palou. But that's obviously not materialised. So also on Friday, we spoke to Award about kind of his outlook for the rest of the championship, as well as the split practice format that IndyCar has trialled this year on some of the shorter tracks.
Thanks, Dave. Hi. First of all, Pato, we've seen this split practice format kind of trialled over street courses this year, and obviously now in Portland as well. What is your take on kind of this idea from IndyCar, and would it be something you'd like to continue with next year in these practice sessions?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic, this idea of 2 groups in practice 1. Obviously the first part of it is all together, but it's good to have a chance with the Reds and, at least get a few laps together where you know that you'll get the track distance, or I guess, track respect that you would want, because the reality is that 27 cars just don't fit around a 58-second lap. Everybody wants a 2 or 3 second gap. It just doesn't. The math just doesn't do it. So the grid is way too big for the track lengths that we race at around the calendar, and this is a necessity for I would say 80% of the tracks. Obviously like a Road America, we don't need it, but in places like this, all the street courses, it's a 100% must.
And then obviously you got super unlucky at Gateway with the issue. Do you still have any remaining thoughts to the championship in these closing few rounds, or is it kind of the priority now for you just to get some race wins on the board if possible?
I would love to get back on the podium and win before the end of the season would be, I feel like, a very strong close. In terms of championship, if we're scoring that in the next four races, I think we'll be looking good. Obviously, probably out of reach for first, to fight at the front and win races and be on the podium, and that's what we want to push for, because I really don't care if I'm 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th in the championship. To me, it makes no difference. We want to be in the top 3, and if we can't do that, we'll do our best to position ourselves to win the race.
Kevin Simpson was the final car on the lead lap. He finished 16th. And then we had Toby Sowry finish 17th. If you haven't catched our episode with Toby last week, we got about a 70-minute exclusive feature with Toby. It goes through his entire racing career, the Dale Coyne opportunities, aspirations for the future. It's really good episodes. If you haven't already, check that out. I think it's the first episode since that actually happened. So do check out the episode with Toby. It's a great exclusive, and we've obviously got loads of content to go with it. And if you haven't caught it, there is an exclusive giveaway we're running with Formula Model Shop for Toby's signed and race-worn gloves and boots. So check that out if you haven't already. But it's good to see Toby had a good showing in the end. I mean, 17th was actually his worst of the 3 races, but that certainly does not tell the whole story. We saw him battling away with Carl Kirkwood for a battle which lasted almost an entire lap at the end, and Toby prevailing in the end. We saw him with Nolan Siegel, which forced Siegel into a mistake, and even Townsend Bell in particular was really giving Toby Sowry some of the plaudits. So it was a bit more flashy than he was in Mid-Ohio and Toronto on track. I know it's not his best result, but again, a really good showing from Toby. You look, it's a car which has had such difficult luck all year, but when you look at their standings in 3 races, Toby has brought their 3 best results of the entire season.
Yeah, I wonder whether this performance will actually prove to be just as, or to be honest, even more valuable possibly than what he delivered at Mid-Ohio, at Toronto even. It was a great effort in qualifying even. He put himself 11th in a group that had Pato O'Ward in, and he beat Pato O'Ward in qualifying. So that was impressive, especially because he didn't have many laps in opening practice. Sowry, he missed the opportunity to run the alternates because of some sort of issue in opening practice. But again, matched his best starting spot of 21st and really clawed back pace through the weekend, overcame whatever was stacked against him, as we kind of saw in those other outings. And again, he kind of appeared to have the measure on his much more experienced teammate Jack Harvey. And he was staying ahead of O'Ward in the race, and the Kirkwood battle really showed that he's able to hold his own against some of the best in the series. And that was a great battle as well. They fought really hard, and it wasn't as though it was, Sowry's trying to stay on the lead. This was for position, and okay, Sowry had to stop again, and Kirkwood had just come out of hits, but they raced side by side cleanly through some extremely fast sections of that track. Kirkwood showed his appreciation afterwards on Twitter, which was nice to see. That should stand him in really good stead for teams looking for drivers.
He was ahead of Stingray Rob, who was ahead of Yuri Vips. Yuri was obviously back this weekend. Do you have anything to say about Yuri? He was quite quiet, unspectacular, but didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, and then not loads really. I was quite impressed, actually, again, kind of going back to just how he rolled off in opening practice. He hadn't been in a car I don't even know if he'd been in a car. Obviously, he's been doing sim work for RLL, but I don't know if he'd been in a car since Laguna Seca last year, or at least an IndyCar. So, yeah, I mean, he was quite quickly on the pace, and it wasn't any of this. Yeah, he's kind of at the back through practice, getting up to speed. He was probably sort of up there, and I think he was a bit disappointed with qualifying. I think he was 8th in his group, which is still very respectable. I mean, for a guy who's been out of a car for so long. Unfortunately, kind of the race result didn't quite materialise, but yeah, I don't think he did himself any harm. Let's put it that way. I'm sure Toby will have been quite happy to have beaten Yuri. Obviously, he kind of said it would be good for them both to be on track together after Vips last year. Pipped him to the RLL seat for a couple of rounds, so I'm sure he would have enjoyed that.
He was a Malukas, and Malashank, in truth, had a pretty poor day. Rhodes and Chris has gone really well around Portland in the last couple of years, and just wasn't that strong. Don't know why. They just wasn't their day.
Malukas had an engine penalty, but it was kind of, he was in the same ballpark as O'Ward really, in not making the sort of progress that McLaughlin was able to. So yeah, good form lately, but that was disappointing.
And the Siegel Daily, these people call quite a distance. Siegel Daily, Lundqvist had his own off-track excursion. Harvey, Fittipaldi, Rasmussen, Grosjean, and Dixon. There we are, your Grand Prix of Portland results. So now we must get on to your unsung hero of the Grand Prix of Portland.
I think I'm going to go for Marcus Armstrong. I think a lot of the talk's been about Linus Lundqvist, and it was a really good kind of response to obviously Linus getting that podium. And it's kind of this battle between the two is being made out as maybe one will get a seat and one won't, possibly at my shank. So yeah, I think that was a good showing.
Let's go for the other Marcus Ericsson. Third best results here, quietly solid day. Well done to him. Anyway, talking of Linus, we spoke to him midweek about his podium at Gateway, as well as a couple of other things. So here's that clip there. Thank you very much, Dave. Hi, Linus. Well done on the result on the weekend. Post Barber, you sort of said you didn't do too much of the work. It was all down to strategy, and I think you said you were a small part of it. In comparison, how do you reflect to this podium? I know the strategy was all over the place in the race, but how do you reflect on this one in comparison?
I'd say it was a bit of a combination. Strategy was definitely on point, especially in the last call during the last yellow to kind of get us back there on the lead lap. That kind of made our night to have the chance to fight for a podium. But even without that, I think we were looking to fight for a top 6, top 7 finish, which again would have been a very solid night for us. But the strategy definitely helped us there on the last call and just getting us to that position as well. But I think it was a bit of a combination. Personally, I think I drove a pretty good race. Was fast when we needed to. We were able to pass cars, which was nice. And, the longer the race went on, the more comfortable I felt. And yeah, towards the end there, we had a fun little last restart.
And obviously your racing career started in Europe, even a bit back here in the UK. So you haven't had much oval experience. You had a couple of races in Indy Lights. So how have you found the adaptation to ovals? Do you feel you're there already after less than 10 races under your belt?
I mean, I think the oval experience and the oval learning is not going to stop. I would say that I'm far from a complete driver on ovals. I still got plenty to learn. But I think also every single race I do in ovals, the better I get. I think, the race that we had this weekend was another kind of step in the right direction. I think it boosts in confidence as well in ovals. And I could feel my confidence going up throughout the race because we started off, balance wasn't ideal, but we made some tweaks of the first and second pit stops, and then throughout the race went on, and towards the end I felt very comfortable. So hopefully we can build on this. Obviously we have another 3 more oval races in the last 4 coming up, so that's hopefully something positive for us.
And then looking at the whole season, you obviously had some real highs but some more difficult times as well. So compared to how you expected the season to go, how would you reflect on that?
Yeah, I think it's been a season of, some pretty good highs, but also some pretty low lows. But, I also think that this is kind of how a rookie season can go. I think I made some rookie mistakes. I think I expected more of myself in the beginning because I thought myself, I've done 3 races. I know what this is about. Realized quite quickly that I was in for a bit of a shock. So there's been a lot of learning to do, and some of these tracks as well you've never been to, and one of the biggest things that I think I've learned across the years just energy management, because like I said, it's been a hectic season. So just the ability to kind of manage your energy, what to do, what to focus once you relax, that's been a big learning curve for me.
A lot of drivers to speak to this week, so if you like them, you're in good company. If you don't, I'm very sorry. Funny moments, there's one that absolutely stands out to me this week. It has to be the hate cauldron. They brought it back. NBC brought back the massive hate cauldron and throwing names in there. Will-Power was in there. Grosjean was in there. Newgarden was in there. Sitting on the top of the hate cauldron was Álex Palou. If you haven't seen it, search it. It's brilliant. I love it. That's mine.
Yeah, I'm making a habit of now having a short list. I think it was practice 2. We had Colton Herta full speed down the backstretch, flipping the bird at Nolan Siegel. David Malukas did a photo shoot with Will-Power after their gateway incident, which I found quite amusing. Álex Palou did not understand the hate cauldron. Let's just put it that way. In the post-race press conference, it took a very convoluted explanation for him to actually understand what it was. And when he actually got a handle on it, he quite amusingly said, yeah, we might have dramas with other drivers, but I have enough of my own dramas. I'm paraphrasing. That's pretty much what he said, obviously alluding to all the off-track stuff that's been going on in recent years. Palou was on Power Forward press conferences. He said, he was talking about, having limited sets of the Reds because he was fearful after chewing them up in Detroit, and said he was fearful he would be P banana. But for me, the funniest moment of the weekend is Will Power bursting out in song for about 30 seconds at the start of the post-race press conference. He was clearly in a jubilant mood after his win. So we will play a clip in at some point towards the end of this episode.
What?
There we go. There you go,
man.
You're on the ones and twos now.
We're all the same. Only the names change every day. Seems we're wasting away.
Plenty to choose from. And now we must get on to the very serious business, the predictor tournaments. It's holding up. It's certainly holding up. So let's start off with the podium predictor tournament. So this week, there's another way to put it. Everybody predicted Álex Palou to win, which doesn't bode well for the competitiveness of the series. That all of us predicted Palou to win. Josh Mason didn't enter this week, but everybody else predicted Palou to win. Not great. Doesn't bode well for the unpredictability of the series. So everybody got 2 points apart from the fans because you predicted Power second. So 4 points for you. That obviously means that standings really don't change too much from last week. Everyone's +2 apart from the followers. So it's Tom in first, 2 points ahead of Archie, 1 point ahead of myself, and I'm 1 point ahead of the writers. So we have a 7-point gap to Josh and Ellie, time 27. 1 point ahead of FMS, and then the followers is still a bit of catching up to do, but oh well.
This is the tightest championship with three races to go.
Well, it's not the tightest championship.
Oh, is it not?
We have the Fast 6 predictor tournament. I can't remember who everybody put. I do actually. Did I write it down? I wrote it down. That's convenient. I went for Rosenqvist, Palou, McLaughlin, Power, O'Ward, Herta. That got me 2 for Palou, Power. You went for Palou, Rossi, McLaughlin, Herta, O'Ward, and Grosjean. And then you went for McLaughlin, Palou, Pato, O'Ward, Dixon, Herta, and Malukas. So you both got 1 for Palou, and I got 2 for Power and Palou. So you still lead on 39, but me and Ellie are tied on 38. So
that is even closer.
That is even closer. And now that leads us on. I know Ellie's not here, but that will lead us on to me and Archie's Milwaukee predictions. Obviously, it is a double header. What are we doing? We'll do for Iowa 2 separate ones. We're doing 1 combined one.
Did we combine for Iowa?
I think we combined. Yeah, we combined.
Yeah, let's combine. Let's
combine. We'll come back to the combined predictions for Milwaukee. I mean, this is big. Double the chance this weekend, so got to get it right. We'll be back with you in a minute. I think this is the same as what I put for Gateway. Triple Penske, Herta, Palou, O'Ward.
I've gone one different, actually. I've gone for triple Penske, Herta, O'Ward, and Dixon.
Dixon instead of Palou. Fine. It's the 1 week where triple Penske might actually work. So 6 points up for grabs for triple Penske. So we'll see how the plans out. But Milwaukee next week, the first Milwaukee race since 2015. So we don't really know what's going to happen. There is no real past relevant information to go off. Like, a few of the field have raced at Milwaukee. The last time we went there, some of the likes that race there, just so you know, Dixon raced there, Power raced there, Ray Hall actually podium there last time we went, Newgarden raced there, and I think that's it of the current field. So look, not many people have been there. Ed Carpenter has obviously been there as well, sorry. So not many people have been there. Obviously, we had quite a big test. I think the entire field is tested at Milwaukee at some point. I know a few teams missed the open test, but I think they caught up. So it's unpredictable. I mean, there's not really comparable. It's a short oval, obviously. It's a mile long, as you can probably guess. It's probably most similar to Gateway if we had to pick one. But the banking's a bit flatter. It's not easy to overtake. So, look, we don't know what's going to happen. It might be as fantastic as Gateway was, but it's certainly an unknown, which is we've got the next 3 tracks we haven't been to since we've started watching IndyCar. I haven't been to for 9 years. So who knows what's going to happen? I mean, Palou said he's never even seen Nashville Super Speedway. So
apart from iRacing. I think he said.
Yeah.
I mean, just to kind of add on to that, I mean, the test that they did have, the Ganassi cars and Hunkos cars tested separately because of the Le Mans clash. But from those who were there for the kind of rest of field, most field test, Penske were dominant. I think even when they did the kind of mock race running, Penske were pretty dominant there. So I guess that's kind of ominous for the field, but I think Palou was kind of semi-joking, maybe not joking that they were going to shock Penske. So we'll kind of that's kind of a bit of a watch this space. But it's pretty cool going into a race with this sort of level of unknown, with it being a track that has been off the calendar for the best part of 10 years. So, yeah, I mean, obviously the package wasn't right at Iowa, but IndyCar got it right for Gateway. So that kind of gives me confidence. I don't think anyone really knows what it's going to be like. So, yeah, doubleheader, it would be a real shame if it is like the Iowa doubleheader again. But if it's 2 races like we saw with Gateway, then we're in for something pretty special, I think.
And look, if Álex Palou leaves Milwaukee with the gap he has now, well, he won't technically be champion, only 1 more point. But we'll say if he leaves the gap he's got now, he will be the IndyCar champion. The championship is on the line at Milwaukee. I think with Penske's running, you know, you got to say Power. I expect him to take it to Nashville, but we never know. Power might have a crash race 1. You know, Palou might just have a disastrous weekend. It's unlikely, but you never know. So with double headers, we have double the unpredictability, double the chances, double the points, and potentially a championship when we come back to you next week. So it's going to be a telling weekend. Will a champion be crowned? Will it go to Nashville? That's what we all hope will happen. We want it to be decided in the final race. So
yeah, biggest weekend of the season, I would say. I think in terms of what's at stake.
Yeah, quite possibly. So we love over racing. It's a new track for us, at least. It's a new track for many of the drivers, and the championship is on the line. What's there not to love about the return of Milwaukee next week? So thanks very much for watching. Thanks very much for listening. Will the championship be decided next time? You'll find out next time. See you then.